U.S. Vice President Mike Pence offers condolences to France following a shooting rampage in Paris. In our Music Makers segment, the work of African music maestro Salif Keita. And we'll explain how a video game helps kids cope with a scary health condition. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. The Champs-Élysées, Paris's most iconic boulevard, has slowly returned to its normal activities Friday after a gunman killed one policeman and wounded two others Thursday night in an attack carried out only days before presidential elections. Police have detained and questioned three family members of the gunman who was shot and killed in the attack. A Belgian man wanted in connection with the heinous act has turned himself in to authorities in Antwerp. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence said Friday the attack in central Paris was the latest reminder that terrorism can strike anywhere and at any time, and the United States would not relent in its efforts to end terrorism. Pence made the remarks at the start of a roundtable with businessmen in Jakarta, Indonesia, where he was ending a two-day visit to Southeast Asia's largest economy.
This is just the latest reminder that terrorism can strike anywhere, at any time, something that the people of Indonesia and the United States know all too well. As President Trump said yesterday, in the face of this great evil, and I quote, "We have to be strong and we have to be vigilant." Today, the people of Paris have our condolences and our prayers. And the people of France are on our hearts today. And the people of Indonesia can be confident in the wake of this latest attack. We will not relent in our effort to end terrorism and the threat it presents to both of our peoples, and I pledge to you our continued cooperation against terrorism in the uncertain days in which we live.
Well, sources close to the investigation say a handwritten note praising the so-called Islamic State terrorist group was found near the gunman suspected of fatally shooting a police officer. The Islamic State claimed responsibility for the assault through its news agency. Now, voters in France's elections are driven largely by anti-establishment sentiments and public anger over corruption, cronyism and immigration policies. Those views are prevalent in France's Rust Belt, a stronghold of anti-immigration candidate Marine Le Pen, but also in Paris. But unlike the Rust Belt, many Parisians do not appear ready to go all the way and support Le Pen. VOA Europe correspondent Luis Ramirez reports from Paris.
Heavily armed police outside churches and tourist sites are reminders that Islamist extremist attacks have become part of life here. In the city's eclectic 11th arrondissement, in the shadows of the Bataclan Theater, scene of the worst of the November 2015 terrorist attacks, residents dismiss any suggestion that concerns about terrorism and Islamism will sway them to vote for anyone other than centrists.
Then you have the tourist industry, and you have the attractivity of Paris for foreign companies and foreign businesses. If you choose to vote for the National Front, you usually vote against your own interest, against the interest of this multicultural city. We are still very much aware that the extremist threat is there on an everyday basis. We are still living in the state of emergency, but we do not scapegoat the Muslims.
Aquitaine, Auvergne, Limousin.
Marine Le Pen and her National Front have made Muslim immigration a central theme of her campaign. Candidates of the center-right have largely stayed away from the issue, as has the mainstream media. Many Parisians prefer to talk about the economy, corruption and cronyism, and why they would not support the National Front.
Because it is not the spirit of the French. Those who are with the extreme right are fascists. For the French, it's not their thing. That is how I see it, and I would never vote for them. Never, never, never.
Mr. Macron, Mr. Fillon, things are said of them sometimes, but they remain viable candidates. So I'm going to make my choice between one of them. The political establishment is like it has always been. There are problems, but the main thing is the high-speed trains continue continue to run, the airports remain working, and the highways are rolling. The main thing is that our children have a bit of a better future.
But not all are comfortable with how things are. Analysts predict some will vote for Le Pen quietly as a protest in a bid to shake the system.
Because they despise the elites of this country. Over 3/4 of our population think our politicians are disgusting as human beings. And same thing with mainstream media. In this context, some, it's a minority, but some will just want to put a grenade in the ballot. That's all.
While some want a clean break from the past, others see no reason for a revolt against globalism. In Paris' La Défense business district, Jeremy Teixeira, son of Portuguese immigrants, interns at a multinational company that will pay for his graduate studies.
As a young person, I'm for globalization. It is something that's imposed on us. We cannot go against it. We must go with it. For business, for individuals, it is a very good thing.
In an elite city that has set a world standard for cosmopolitanism and diversity, the notion of a nationalist new France and a future that looks inward and to the past seems for many voters alien. The question in this election is how big the protest against the status quo will be. Luis Ramirez, VOA News, Paris.
Well, U.S. President Donald Trump and Italian Prime Minister Paolo Gentiloni have discussed cooperating in efforts to stabilize war-torn regions and eliminate major threats to global security, such as nuclear programs in Iran and North Korea. Strengthening NATO, the European Union, and fighting terrorism also were high on the agenda. VOA's Zlatitsa Hoke reports.
At a joint news conference Thursday, Trump acknowledged the role of Italy in saving migrants stranded in the Mediterranean Sea, but stressed the importance of keeping European borders safe.
And a responsible approach to refugees is one that seeks the eventual return of refugees to their home countries so that they can help to rebuild their own nations.
Trump said the world everywhere is in danger from terrorists, but also cited Iran and North Korea as threats to global security. His renewed criticism of an international nuclear deal with Iran came just days after he ordered security agencies to review it.
Iran has not lived up to the spirit of the agreement.
Regarding North Korea, the president expressed confidence that China can use economic pressure to curb Pyongyang. Trump said he also used pressure on Chinese President Xi Jinping to get him to act.
I actually told him, I said, you'll make a much better deal on trade if you get rid of this menace or do something about the menace of North Korea.
Italy's prime minister said his country is looking forward to welcoming the U.S. president at the G7 summit in Italy next month.
I trust it will be an opportunity to show the unity of the leaders our principle-free economies of the planet, because there is much need for that unity at this moment.
Earlier Thursday, Gentiloni told an audience in Washington that military victories alone are not enough to defeat terrorism.
There is a military solution in Raqqa, but there is not a military solution in Damascus. There is a political solution to get rid of this regime.
The Italian leader said his country is committed to tackling the root causes of terrorism and armed conflicts, but that it needs the support of other countries. Zlatitsa Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Well, back online. Cameroon's government has restored the internet to its Anglophone region 3 months after cutting it amid protests against the predominantly French-speaking government of President Paul Biya. Now, activists had condemned the internet shutdown as a form of collective punishment. Cameroonian forces have cracked down on protests as in the English-speaking region that erupted last October, beating and arresting protesters. Some of them now face the death penalty in military courts. The unrest has exposed national divisions between the regions of Cameroon that were historically colonized by the French and the British. U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions says WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange's arrest is a priority. The comments by Sessions came amid reports the government is preparing charges against the Australian whistleblower. Speaking in El Paso, Texas, Thursday, Sessions said the Justice Department is stepping up its efforts to prosecute people who leak classified information to the media.
We are going to step up our effort and already are stepping up our efforts on all leaks. This is a matter that's gone beyond anything I'm aware of. We have professionals that have been at the security business of the United States for many years that are shocked by the number of leaks, and some of them are quite serious. So yes, it is a priority.
Well, the move comes after WikiLeaks last month released nearly 8,000 documents that it says reveal secrets about the CIA's cyber espionage tools for breaking into computers, cell phones, and even smart TVs. The U.S. Justice Department has been investigating Assange since at least 2010, when WikiLeaks published thousands of stolen U.S. security files. U.S. President Donald Trump's first 100 days have been disrupted by multiple investigations into Russia's possible interference with American elections. Among the questions law enforcement agencies and Congress want answered, did the Trump campaign collude with Moscow? VOA's Steve Baragona explains.
January 10th. The nation's top intelligence officials testifying for the first time on Russian efforts to sabotage last year's U.S. presidential election.
We have high confidence that President Putin ordered an influence campaign in 2016 aimed at the U.S. presidential election. The goals of this campaign were to undermine public faith in the U.S. democratic process, denigrate Secretary Clinton, and harm her electability and potential presidency. Putin and the Russian government also developed a clear preference for President-elect Trump.
Major allegations, but few answers in one of the biggest political scandals to shake Washington in years, followed by weeks of dizzying developments, the resignation of Trump's national security advisor, and the recusals of the Attorney General and the House Intelligence Committee chairman, and the FBI director finally going public with what many had speculated for weeks, that the Bureau started investigating Russia last July.
I have been authorized by the Department of Justice to confirm that the FBI, as part of our counterintelligence mission, is investigating the Russian government's efforts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election. And that includes investigating the nature of any links between individuals associated with the Trump campaign and the Russian government.
As with any counterintelligence investigation, the FBI wants to know whether any crimes were committed. Trump has dismissed the Russia allegations as a hoax, saying the real scandal involves the Obama administration's surveillance of Trump and his campaign associates last year.
It's all fake news. It's all fake news.
But the Trump investigation is quite serious, says former Watergate prosecutor Richard Benveniste.
It highlights the vulnerabilities of our democracy and other democracies throughout the world to interference through techniques of hacking, disinformation, and various kinds of disruptions that we must be guarding against.
And U.S. lawmakers say they want to get the facts, no matter how long it takes.
Let me just say that we can't say enough what the mission of the Senate committee is, which is to look at all activities that Russia might have taken to alter or influence the 2016 elections in the United States.
The Senate Intelligence Committee is one of 5 panels that have looked into Russian interference. The panel moved into the spotlight after Devin Nunes, chairman of the House panel leading the investigations, stepped aside amid allegations of disclosing classified documents. To find answers, 7 professional committee staffers with top security clearance are poring over thousands of classified intelligence documents. Among at least 20 witnesses, the panel plans to interview Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law and senior advisor. The FBI probes are carried out of 2 field offices and the Bureau's Washington headquarters. To coordinate the investigations, the Bureau is reportedly setting up a Washington task force. When contacted by VOA, the FBI declined to comment. Last month, Comey was asked how long an investigation of this kind usually takes.
There is no usually. It's impossible to say, frankly.
But Benveniste said the probe could drag well into next year.
It depends upon the level of cooperation of cooperating witnesses, various electronic intercepts that may yield promising information to the investigators. It certainly will not be over in a matter of a few months.
By contrast, the Watergate investigation in the early 1970s took 2 years, and the Iran-Contra probe of the 1980s lasted 6 years. For VOA correspondent Masoud Farivar, I'm Steve Baragona.
Well, in Friday's business news, the World Bank sees growth returning to sub-Saharan Africa over the next couple of years. For more details, Africa 54 business correspondent Jill Malandrino reports from the NASDAQ market site in New York.
The World Bank issued a report this week, and it expects economic growth in sub-Saharan Africa to rise between 2017 and 2019. The bank said in its latest Africa's Pulse report, economic growth is expected to expand to 2.6% this year, although that's down from 2.9% in an earlier report, but further to 3.2% in 2018, and it goes up to 3.5% a year later. Now, sub-Saharan African growth was an estimated 1.3% in 2016. The World Bank said that the worst for the region in more than 2 decades was really hurt by poor performance in Nigeria, South Africa, and Angola. This was largely due to external developments, low commodity prices, and difficult domestic conditions. For example, Nigeria actually contracted 1.5% due to tight liquidity and CBN policy, delays in the budget, and militant attacks on oil pipelines. Now, excluding those 3 countries, growth in the region was estimated to be 4.1% in 2016. Côte d'Ivoire, Ethiopia, Kenya, Mali, Rwanda, Senegal, and Tanzania, they were all highlighted for continuing to show economic resilience. So, why does the World Bank see an uptick in economic growth a few years out? An upturn in economic activity is expected to continue 2018-19, reflecting improvements in commodity prices and a pickup in global growth, and more supportive domestic conditions should support economic expansion in sub-Saharan Africa. That said, even though the region is showing signs of slow recovery, growth is only expected to rise slightly above population growth. Albert Zufak, he's the World Bank's chief economist for Africa, said, as countries move towards fiscal adjustment, we need to protect the right conditions for investment so that sub-Saharan African countries achieve a more robust recovery. From the NASDAQ market site in New York, I'm Jill Malandrino, and this is Africa 54 Business News.
Well, thanks a lot, Jill. Now we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends also. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Coming up, the dynamic music of Afropop singer-songwriter Salif Keita. Stay with us.
I'm Jeff Selden, and I work the National Security Beat. National Security Beat is anything that affects the national security of the United States, from counterterrorism to surveillance to even relations with Russia. It's one of the most fascinating beats you can have. It's probably one of the more important beats that you can cover because it touches on so many areas of the world, so many areas of people's day-to-day lives. I'm Jeff Selden, and my beat is national security.
Well, it's time for our Friday Music Makers segment. Today we are featuring the music of Salif Keita, the Malian music icon, who is affectionately referred to as the golden voice of Africa. Heather Maxwell, host of VOA's Music Time in Africa radio show, recently attended a concert by Keita here in Washington and now joins me to talk about the man and his music. This guy is a phenomenon.
He is.
He's incredible.
Yeah. And coming to Washington, he was here some time back.
He was here on April 9th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the difference? What was this concert all about?
Well, this concert was to raise money for albinism, which is a cause that he has taken up in his later years. You know, he's had a career that spanned over 30 years at this point. Sure. 40, actually.
40. In fact, he's nearly 70 years old, right?
Yes.
Somewhere close there. How do you find his music, the energy? You know, you attended his concert, you've seen him before, you've seen the videos.
Well, I've seen him before,
yeah.
But it's been a while, and I was just so impressed and inspired, and everybody there was just from up on the roof, or not the roof, but the upper levels of the balcony. They were hanging over, they were cheering, and people were coming on stage and throwing money on him. He was just amazing.
Now, as an African music icon, one of the things that he has done is to really lift up the traditional instruments and the style, which is a great lesson to the younger musicians, not only in Mali, but across Africa, right? Very
true. And he has also, he raised sort of the bar for African music and made the orchestration really tight, the vocal lines really perfect. He's a perfectionist as an artist.
Yeah.
And every album he does, he tries to make it different than the other album. So he shows a lot of different variety in his music.
It kind of takes time to do this thing. And I just wanted us to take a moment to kind of listen a little bit to the performance. I know it was a stage performance. See, this is a signature song, right? Everybody, you know, you hear this song across the continent. I don't know if there's anybody who doesn't know this song.
Probably right.
It is a beautiful song. How was it like listening to him perform this particular song?
It was so exciting and just so wonderful. It really was.
Yeah.
Also, I wanted to say that when I spoke to him after the concert, he gave me some news that not everybody knows, in fact, very few, which is he's doing his very last album, and it's coming out in September.
So this is it?
He says this is his final album, and he wants to do many featurings, but he only told us one featuring. He has one song with Angélique Kidjo.
Yeah, of course, the great.
So that's going to be something to look forward to.
Is there any particular reason why he doesn't want to continue? I mean, this is almost like saying he's retiring from active music production.
He told me that he's been on the road for half of his life, and he's getting older, and he needs a rest.
Yeah.
He needs to take it easy.
And I know you spoke to him, and yesterday we did actually feature him also, just talk about the albinism issue.
Yeah.
From your conversation with him, how does he feel now? Does he feel like he wants to devote a little more time? I know he's older, but does he want to get a little more involved in the campaign?
Yes, and he said it's not just albinism in Mali. He's not just fighting for their rights and protection in Mali, but Africa-wide, actually worldwide.
Yeah.
So I think as he gets older, he's really starting to look inward and see that, you know, this is something I lived through, and I actually have the power to make a difference here.
And I think this is particularly the time to, you know, really for him to talk about, because we've seen what's been happening in countries like Tanzania, and this is perhaps one of the most famous person in the whole world who is an albino and extremely successful and world renowned.
Yeah.
And so I think he's really playing a big role. Hopefully the message can reach everybody down there and even in the remotest parts. Heather, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thanks for sharing with us. So I want to thank Heather once again for another really fantastic Music Maker segment. Now, to learn more about Heather Maxwell and her VOA radio show, visit Facebook and type in the keywords Music Time in Africa, and you can see what time our program can be heard in your area, and also learn more about some of our featured artists. Thank you. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, how a wildly popular video game is being used to help get kids through a scary diagnosis. We'll be right back.
اول مره من اللي جاني غادي كان دخل من عندهم الشيخ نتاعو ديريكت مشى للشيخ نتاعو ملي من السنس يخرج به.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. A software developer in Australia is building a version of one of the world's most popular computer games in an effort to help children adjust to the demands of life with type 1 diabetes. Now, Josh Wolf got the idea after his son was diagnosed with the condition. Now, Josh wants to help other children dealing with the diagnosis. He's building a version of the game Minecraft where players cast spells and battle baddies while managing their blood sugar and insulin. Well, next up, a leading Indian manufacturing company has launched what it says is the country's first industrial robot. TAL Manufacturing Solutions, a subsidiary of Tata Motors, launched TAL Brado Robots, which is designed to help businesses with cost-effective automated solutions. The robot can perform tasks like raw material handling, picking and placement of materials, assembly of parts, packaging of finished products, and can be programmed to work continuously with a high degree of flexibility. Other applications include machine and press tending, sealing and camera and vision-based jobs. And finally, at the UK's largest e-cigarette and vaping show, the subject of stricter EU regulation of e-cigarettes and liquids is on everybody's lips. Next month, the 12-month transition period of Article 20 of the Tobacco Products Directive comes into force. The new regulations will restrict the quantity and potency of e-liquid available to buy. One of the criticisms often leveled at the vaping industry is that rather than trying to convert smokers to vaping, it is in fact targeting a new generation of young vapers. Although in the UK, vaping is not covered by existing smoking laws in public places, there is increasing private enforcement. It is illegal for under 18s to buy e-cigarettes. And that is what is trending today. Well, and that's our show for today. Now be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com for more news. Tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching from all of us here in Washington. Have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. A plate is a dish that you put your food on.
Have a lot on your plate.
Hey Anna, I'm having a party this weekend. You should come.
I wish I could, but my weekend is really busy. I'm baking a wedding cake, writing my article, teaching 2 classes, and oh, my parents are visiting.
Wow, you have a lot